The sound on for the live stream. Just so you're aware.
My thought is I really made a mess out of some houses and sealed. Yeah.
Good evening. The time is now 6:30, and the meeting of the District 55 School Board is now called to order. Ms. Wilson, was the media notified of this meeting?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
There are 6 trustees in attendance this evening, thus a quorum is present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
To adjust the agenda in one way.
Okay.
I'd like to add a discussion of face-to-face, returning to that with a possible board action.
Okay. We would first need to, we would first need to approve the agenda, and then during the discussion is where we would have an amendment. Okay?
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am, we would need a motion and a second to approve it, and then the discussion, right? Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Ware. Is there a second to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll second.
We have a second by trustee Varner. Do we have any discussion at this time?
As previously stated, I'd like to add a discussion with possible board action, either right after the superintendent's report or at the end. I'll accept either place.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the agenda by trustee Varner. Do we have a second to amend the agenda as noted? We have a second by trustee Wall. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the amendment to the agenda, please signify by raising your hand.
Didn't know which space we were going to put that in. I'll offer two of them in the discussion, sorry.
Okay,
How about right after the superintendent?
so the motion carries on a vote of 6 in favor, no opposing. Are there any further discussion on the agenda? And trustee Varner mentioned having the amendment to move that item at the end of after the superintendent's report. All in favor of approving the agenda as amended, please signify by raising your hand. The motion carries on a vote of 6 in favor and 0 opposing. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the Lawrence County School District 55 School Board meeting. Welcome to all of you who are present this evening and all of those who are joining us online. At this time, I invite all of you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In accordance with Board Policy BD, Organization of the Board, trustees will now elect officers for a term of 2 years. The officers to be elected are Board Chair, Board Vice Chair, and Board Secretary. I will moderate the election of the Board Chair. After the Chair is elected, He or she will conduct the remaining items on the agenda. The floor is now open for nominations.
I'd like to make a
for chair.
motion.
I'd like to nominate Warner, chair,
Okay.
board chair.
Are there any further nominations?
I would like to nominate Miss Kathy Little for chair.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, the nominations for board chair are now closed. With Mr. Garner and Ms. Little having been duly nominated for the office of board chair, trustees will now vote by the show of hands. All of those in favor of trustee Garner for board chair, please raise your hand. By a vote of 1 to 5, the board, the nomination of Garner has been considered. Now, all of those in favor of trustee Little for board chair, please raise your hand. Okay. By a vote of 4 in favor of trustee Little, and all those opposing? Okay, do we have two that are not voting?
She voted for, I abstained, because I was involved.
Okay, so there's 4 in favor of trustee Little as the board chair for a 2-year term. So at this time, I will now turn the rest of the meeting over to Ms. Little. Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Ms. Little, I have to say one thing before we start. Trustee Little, who's now chair. In all things, I know having no experience is not a prerequisite, nor is it required. But I see where Dr. Thomas has signed whomever it is, which is you now, up for board chair training. And I would strongly urge, and I hope Ms. Wilson gets this, that you do attend chair, vice chair training because of the length of time you've been on the board. Like I said, it's not a prerequisite, nor is it required, but it's desperately needed. As long as I've been on the board, I've been through all those classes and all the training. It's not an easy task, and I know we all take what we do very seriously. And my motto and old adage is, you can't teach what you don't know, you can't lead where you don't go. Please be informed. That's all I ask. Please be
Well,
very
Ms. Ware,
informed.
I appreciate you stating that. Interesting that you think I don't have enough experience having 2 years on the board and you're willing
It's
to
all-
nominate Todd, who has no experience
Yeah,
on the
but he
board.
seems very level-headed,
But
and I
I
like his
assure you
positions
that I
on
will do
several things.
everything the proper way to make sure I lead this board properly.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
All right, to get on with our business, now we're going to do the election of the board vice chair. So we'll open the floor to nominations.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Todd Barner.
Any other nominations? All right, we'll take a vote on the vice chair. So all those in favor of trustee Barner as vice chair, please vote by raising your hand. That's 4 in favor, so we've approved Mr. Todd Barner as vice chair. Now we'll move to the election of board secretary. So we'll open the floor for nominations to the board secretary. I actually would like to make the motion myself that that's the board secretary, be Ms. Susan.
I decline.
You don't
I
want to
decline,
be a
no.
part?
No,
Well,
thank you.
okay, that's fine. That's fine. Then we're going to ask Bubba Raw, nominate Bubba Raw. Okay?
Yep, I'll
All right. All right, are there any other nominations? Okay. motion, we'll close that and we will vote on Bubba Law for board secretary. All those in favor? All right, so we have a majority for Bubba Law as our new secretary.
How many votes was it?
It was 5 for 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we have a request for the approval of the minutes for both the home meeting and our regular meeting from November 23rd and November 30th. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move to approve the minutes for those 2 meetings.
A second.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm sorry, who made the second?
I did.
Okay, it's hard to tell with the mask on, I apologize.
All right, and we'll move straight into the report from Dr. Tina Fulton for the Lawrence High School.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Thomas. Thank you so much for allowing me a moment to brag on our school. We are very excited. Dr. Thomas asked me to talk with you about 3 things that we're doing at the high school. The first one is one that you would be interested in, academic recovery. How do we recover from a year of COVID? The other is student support. And the last one is one that we can really brag about, our middle college that we started a couple of years ago. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is our academic recovery plan. We're calling it at the high school the 20% plan. And Dr. Penland called in November and said, what can we do to help kids recover? So I said, well, I think we can do something that I've been wanting to do for years, and that is have every student in every class take a final assessment that covers everything in the class. They then can use that 20% that they normally use for an exam. They can put back on redoing tests, redoing portfolios, whatever the teacher feels like they did not get during the course time. They can go back and redo some of those things for mastery. So that's the reason we called it the 20% plan. It took the place of the 20% exam, which is a large percentage of a grade in a course, that final exam. So for end of course tests, we had planned to have them before the end of the semester, but because we weren't able to do that, we asked those teachers who teach end of course tests, or end of courses, that have an end of course test, to also give a final assessment, and then I'll get to the end of course test in just a minute and how we're thinking about doing that. So the way this plan worked is teachers started on the 21st giving their final assessments and looking at what students needed to recover from the semester, what they needed to build their grades back up. And that went through the 26th, or it will go through the 26th tomorrow. Our actual exam days are the 27th and 28th. Normally, what we would do is students would exempt the exam or they'd have to take the exam. If they had C or below, they'd take the exam. If they had an A, they would be exempt from the exam. If they had a B with perfect attendance, they would be exempt from the exam. But this time what we decided to do was that we decided to give that final assessment, and then they would work through the 26th to build their grades up, whatever the teacher decided to do. We started it in admin, sent it to the board chair, thinking about you, Kathy, we sent it to the department chairs. They refined it for each of their departments, and then each teacher looked at what they gave throughout the semester and said, this is what the students can do to build up their grades. Well, and I said to the team, I said, it's not enough just to have students who are C or below to build up their grades to exemption status. We need enrichment for those students who already have A's and B's. So what they did is they created enrichment and they created content and skill recovery. And students can work on those. They're still, my own child was working on that today. And if they meet exemption status, they do not have to participate in class on the 27th and 28th, which would have been the norm. That is something that did not change. What did change is that every class would have an end of course assessment. We didn't want to call it an exam. but an assessment to see where they are in the course. So that's our 20% plan, and certainly if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer that later. But, you know, one thing stayed the same, the exemption criteria is still the same, except more, they exempted days rather than exams for that. So that is our major recovery plan. We have a couple of others that we're going to try to put into place second semester. The second thing that she asked me to talk about tonight with you all is student support. What are we doing at Lawrence High School to support our students on a daily, weekly basis? One of I think the best things we do is our after-school tutoring programs. Gear Up is a federally funded grant, and they follow a cohort of students throughout their school years, and I think they even go through college. And Gear Up has a 9th grade tutoring program that they have after school 3 days a week. And the other program that we started just this year that we are very proud of at the high school is called Rate of Recovery. In Rate of Recovery, it is 3 days a week. It's sort of paired with the Gear Up tutoring, and it's after school as well. But we added core classes to that component, as well as cake classes. So now they can go into welding after school and catch up on things that they've missed. Or they can go in animal science and catch up on things that they've missed. So we're really excited about our tutoring programs. And those are from 3:45 to 6 o'clock every day. They usually the bus comes a little early for the Gear Up and Rate of Recovery, so they do leave a little earlier than that. The other thing that we started when we decided to go virtual after Christmas is we did a virtual tutoring program that started January 19th, and it offers academic assistance in math, science, English, and special education. So it's virtual. The students were told about that, and so and I think several of them signed up. I don't know have the exact number, but several of them signed up for that. We have so much. The one thing that I have just today I really know that this worked. On the 19th, I had Nancy Coleman, who's our registrar, to pull a report of any student who was failing one or more classes. That's virtual academy, that's face-to-face, and there were 639 students. Now, there were several duplicates, and of course, our letter said one or more. So we sent letters. We sent 639 letters to parents, because so often the students will erase the voicemails or whatever, but if you send a letter, most of the time the parent gets it, and I can tell you that because my email has gone crazy today. I got your letter, Ms. Faulkner, I got your letter. What do I need to do? And of course we're working on that, and told them about the 20% plan in the letter and so forth. So I think that's going to be one of the major things that's going to catch them a lot of our failures this time. We have a new idea for attendance recovery. Although the state is not holding our feet to the fire on attendance recovery this year, we don't want to let that go. So one of the things that we would like to do is, for this last week or so, is turn that back over to the teachers and let them give them assignments to do after 4 o'clock, almost like teachers earn flex time. They can earn their recovery back after 4 o'clock with the teacher. When the teacher's satisfied that they've met that attendance requirement, she then goes to the attendance clerk and satisfies that component. Now, if they fail a class and did not make the attendance, what we're going to ask guidance counselors to do is to sign them up for our Twilight program. And our Twilight program is next on my agenda, but our Twilight program is an after-school program that runs with our tutoring program, where they can go into the Twilight program and do content recovery. In other words, the teacher could give that 20% plan for them to do that plan and recover the content if it's not too low, or they can do credit recovery on our ad minimum online system. So hopefully that'll work out and still keep their feet to the fire about you gotta come to school, because a lot of times that falls by the wayside if you let it go a little bit. One of our other programs that we have that we run during the day that is an assistance program is called Rate or Rebound. And it's a class, or it is classes, let me say that. It runs 4 periods a day. And in what we do with Rate or Rebound, I basically put the counselors over that this year. They were always looking for something if a kid is struggling and we really need to get them into something, what can we do? So Rate or Rebound is actually our instructional coach and our counselors control that component, and a student can go in there and take multiple courses at one time on our Edminum software, online software, and they can recover classes if they make a 50 or above. Or they can do some for initial credit, depending on what the situation is. And I don't always require that the guidance counselors come to me before they put them in there, but a lot of times they do. They'll say, this is what's happening with this student, can we put them in that rate of rebound program? Twilight, I mentioned just a minute ago. Twilight is held 4 evenings a week, and it's geared toward 2 things. It is geared toward students who need to graduate, who might not graduate because they work or whatever, and it runs in the afternoon along with our tutoring programs, but it's also geared toward those students who want to drop out of school. We have many who will go to their guidance counselors and say, I can't do this every day. But they'll come to Twilight because it's small, they have one-on-one assistance, somebody to sit with them, so oftentimes they'll come and do the Twilight. The last thing as far as student support that I want to talk about is our summer school program. Ms. Abercrombie today sent that out, and she said we would be able to pick our weeks. What we usually do at the high school level is we'll pick a couple of weeks in June and July. We're going to cut it close this time because we're getting out so late, but we'll pick a couple of weeks. And students, first of all, anybody that needs to graduate, we put them online to either recover or get whatever they need to graduate. So we really look at those seniors first. And then we'll go down to juniors, sophomores, and so forth until we get it filled up. So our summer school program runs with just like one person in the room, and they work online at their pace, but they need to get it finished in that time frame. All right, the last thing that Dr. Thomas asked me to mention is our middle college. We are so proud of our middle college. And I first of all want to tell you that Josh Dawkins, our 9th grade principal, is the mastermind behind this. I wasn't sure if he could come tonight, but I said I will definitely give him credit. Josh Dawkins, this is his baby, so I'm just repeating what he wants me to repeat to you. When I came back to the high school a couple years ago, I said I would love for us to figure out a way that students could get an associate's degree while they're still in high school like other high schools are doing. He said, I'll do that, Ms. Faulkner, I got it. And so he ran with it, and he really does. Just a little bit about that. First of all, Josh Dawkins is the one that coordinates it, so email him if there are things you want to know about it. He can certainly tell you more than I can about it. But it is a partnership we have with Piedmont Technical College. And students graduate, when they go through these cohorts, they graduate with an associate's degree in arts, as well as their high school diploma. So they get both of those. They can go right into a 4-year college, most of the time as a junior, or start taking junior classes, or they have that degree at the 2-year level. They they offer 86 courses that are listed on South Carolina Commission on Higher Education's list of approved courses, and then these courses pretty much transfer to all 2- and 4-year institutions in South Carolina that they offer. Tuition is free. Dr. Thomas usually finds a way to pay for their books and their supplies, but the tuition is free for these students who take this. Our first cohort will graduate this year in May, we'll graduate in June actually, 2021, and that's 10 students for that first cohort. Our spring cohort is they're already in their classes, and they're taking a math class, an art class, an English class, and a history class, and they're 12, so we went up by 2 in this next cohort. And enrollment for our sophomores will begin on January 25th. So today was kind of the first day for them to start really looking at enrollment, and it's a little bit of a process. Basically, the requirements for the middle college is that a student has to have a 3.75 GPA. They have to have an A in English 1 and an A in Algebra 1, or a B in English 1 honors, or a B in Algebra 1 honors, and no disciplinary infractions. So we check all of that. A couple of other things that Dr. Thomas didn't necessarily say that I mentioned, but I thought she would want me to. We have 53 students of our senior class who've already met their graduation requirements. Now, not all of them will be marching at the winter graduation. We give them the opportunity to march at the winter graduation or at the spring graduation. And some of them go ahead and do winter, and then some of them wait till spring because they want to march with their peers. So we have 53 who have met the requirement, and I'm not sure exactly how many signed up for the winter, but that will be on February 25th. I think all of y'all have been invited to that and will be there. We are focusing this year, really focusing. Our report card a couple of years ago, we were below average my first year back at Lawrence High School. One of the things we scored average on graduation rate, but Dr. Thomas and I have already talked, and we really want to get that above average for sure, but everything else we scored below average on. And one of the things I said to the admin team is there's no excuse for scoring below average on career readiness. So we really have beat the bushes on career readiness. You know, I'm one of those people who said, a lot of people say career, college or career. I say career all the way. Everybody's got to have career sometime. So we got to, you know, we just got to figure out how to get them there. So we're really focusing on that. Every kid that takes a CAPE class is OSHA certified, which is the common safety thing that every business requires. And so we're looking at completer status. We're looking at some of those work-based learning programs. And we have a really good work-based learning CDF right now who is Dabs Davis, and she really goes out with to those businesses and gets information for our kids. Is there anything that you want to ask me? Or should we do that? Certainly email me anytime that you want to know something, and I'm happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Faulkner. I think the next on our agenda is the superintendent report from Dr. Thomas.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Little and members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Faulkner, for the report that you've administered as well. I am happy to share information at this time about things happening in our district, as well as information that also has an impact on our district. This month, January, is School Board Recognition Month, and this is a time for over 600 school board members serving public school districts throughout the state of South Carolina to be recognized. Trustees in Lawrence 55 are elected every 4 years during the general election on a rotating basis. We're very thankful for the service of all of the Lawrence County School District 55 Board of Trustees, and I would like to share a short video, appreciation video at this time.
January is designated as School Board Recognition Month. The theme for this year is School Board Strong. In celebration of School Board Recognition Month, Lawrence County School District 55 honors our Board of Trustees for their service and dedication to our students, school district, and community. Celebrating School Board Recognition Month is one way to say thanks for all they do. Board members serving Lawrence County School District 55 are Mr. Todd Varner, Seat 1, Miss Kathy Little, Seat 2, Mr. Neil Patterson, Seat 3, Mr. Mike Hughes, Seat 4, Mr. Anthony Carpenter, Seat 5, Miss Susan Ware, Seat 6, Mr. Bubba Rawl, Seat 7. Please take a moment to tell our school board members thank you.
Again, thank you all so much for your service to Lawrence County School District 55. Trustees are asked to sign the South Carolina Board Member Ethical Principles this evening to publicly share their vow to uphold effective governance principles and a pledge to help improve public education in the community. The signed document will be displayed in the district office. I ask that Ms. Lisa Wilson read the South Carolina School Board Member Ethical Principles at this time, and I will pass around this for you all to sign.
You all should have a copy of this as well at your place. As a member of my district school board, I pledge my efforts to improve public education in my community and will solemnly try to represent the interest of the entire district when making decisions and to rely on available facts and on our judgment rather than on individuals or special interest groups. understand the proper role of the board to set policies governing the district and to hire the chief administrative officer to carry out these policies. Encourage an open exchange of ideas by all board members during the decision-making process. Seek regular communications between the board and students, staff, and all segments of the community. Attend all board meetings to study issues facing the board and to enact policies and official actions only after full discussion at such meetings. Work with other board members in a conscientious and courteous manner befitting the public trust placed in the position of school board trustee. Communicate concerns and public reaction to board policies and school programs to the superintendent and other board members in a professional manner. Support employment of the persons best qualified for staff positions and to ensure a regular and impartial evaluation of all staff. Avoid conflicts of interest and refrain from using my board position for personal or partisan gain. Encourage recognition of the achievements of students and staff and of the involvement of community residents. Support legislation and funding which will improve the educational opportunities and environment for students and staff. Take no individual action which would compromise the integrity of the school, which would compromise the integrity of the board or administration, and to respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under the Freedom of Information Act. Study current educational issues and to participate in training programs such as those offered through the South Carolina School Boards Association and the National School Boards Association, and make our district's educational setting the best possible to encourage all students to achieve and to love learning.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
You're welcome.
And as stated before, we will have this framed and we will have it on display here at the district office. Parents who have newly enrolled students in Lawrence County Virtual Academy for second semester are invited to participate in a virtual parent meeting on Thursday, January the 28th at 6 p.m. Those planning to participate should visit the district website at www.lawrence55.org and complete the meeting registration form. We currently have 1,029 students enrolled in the virtual academy for the second semester. I am very happy and excited to announce this evening that E.B. Morse Elementary School and Lawrence Middle School are in partnership with the Joe Adair Outdoor Education Center, and they've been selected to participate in the 2021 School Garden and Education Assistance Program. A team of Clemson Extension agents will deliver online course curriculum and will provide virtual workshop materials for these schools. Classroom teachers on the grants list will be automatically enrolled in the online course, but administrators, school nutrition administrators or staff, curriculum specialists, and community partners may be added upon request. The goal of this program is to provide educators with the tools to help students experience an introduction to hands-on agriculture and nutrition education. The program also encourages public schools to use locally grown South Carolina produce in their school menus. The effort is intended to support better health outcomes for children while also providing local economic opportunities. We look forward to this partnership that will benefit teachers, students, and our community. The Department of Student Nutrition is providing approximately 2,500 meals per day. Curbside pickup was offered today and will continue through Thursday of this week from 11:30 to 12:30 at the schools. There will be no curbside pickup on Friday. Friday meals will be packed with Thursday meal pickup. Second semester curbside pickup will continue for the Lawrence County Virtual Academy students on Wednesdays from 11:30 to 12:30 p.m. at all schools except E.B. Morse Elementary and the high school. Those students may pick up meals curbside at any of the other locations. Wednesday pickup will include multiple days of meals. Last week, we received information and notice that a joint resolution is on the way to the full House for review. This bill will allocate up to $50 million for school districts to retroactively provide teachers with step pay increases for the current year. The bill directs districts to provide a one-time lump sum payment for the entire step increase due to the employee, including the amounts that they are due by June the 15th, 2021. The House Ways and Means Committee has unanimously approved the amendments made by the subcommittee. The bill designates the South Carolina Department of Education to distribute the funding to districts. So as we received additional information about this, I will definitely share this with our stakeholders as soon as that information is available. The South Carolina Department of Education has also filed a request for a waiver of the testing requirement for the current school year. The proposed one-year change includes shifting timelines for long-term goals and measures of interim progress because assessments were not administered in 2020, adjusting the methodology for annual meaningful differentiation of schools to account for missing measures, including those related to the school quality, growth in fourth grade, and English learners' proficiency progress. Changing the way schools with consistently underperforming subgroups are identified to adjust for 2020. The existing plan requires 3 consecutive years. Therefore, since we do have that missing information, then this would create that gap. So that is why that is being requested. Extending the time by 1 year that schools in comprehensive support and additional targeted support remain in that improvement status, and modifying the exit criteria from improvement status to take into account the extended time. Also, as it relates to vaccines and preparation for the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine for educators and support staff, the South Carolina Department of Education has asked us to collect data and information to supply, so that they're able to supply that information to the state level decision makers. This data will be used to better inform and expedite the COVID-19 vaccination process for school district employees. Dr. Penland is currently surveying all district staff in order to determine the number of employees who want to receive the vaccine once available. The data will be used for 2 purposes: to submit totals, not names, to the State Department for planning purposes. And 2, if we receive a vaccine provider, this data will be utilized to set up appointments for those wanting to receive the vaccine. At this point, we don't have any definite information as far as an anticipated timeline for our district to receive those vaccines. But again, as we continue to receive information, we will share that as well. On January the 20th, I emailed a district climate survey to all district employees. The information from responses will be analyzed and used to provide guidance as we strive to improve faculty and staff morale, the district's overall environment, and to help us provide all of the necessary support that is needed within our district. All submissions are confidential, and the completion of the survey is voluntary. Survey completers are able to skip any question if they do not want to answer. And today was actually the deadline for those responses, so once that data is compiled, I will share that information as well. And just looking at, as we are quickly approaching second semester, as a result of the crisis in our county that was identified by working closely with city and healthcare officials, we've been operating in e-learning. However, we are to resume face-to-face 5 days a week for all students in pre-K through 12th grade beginning February the 1st. The well-being and safety of all students and staff is still a top priority. I will repeat that. The well-being and safety for all students and staff is still a top priority. We will continue to have safety protocols in place to the best of our ability as we continue to monitor our data and our staffing at our schools to make sure that we have the proper staffing for supervision. I sincerely and respectfully ask that all students and staff to comply with the safety protocols, including wearing a mask, observing proper distancing, frequent hand washing, and staying away from school if they are feeling ill. So parents are reminded that daily temperature checks will be done upon students' arrival at school. And this concludes this portion of my report.
Dr. Thomas, I only have one question about the safety protocols in place. I know some schools now have the testing. Do all schools in our district, are they trained and have COVID tests if necessary?
Yes, ma'am. Testing
Okay.
is provided at all of our schools.
Okay, great. Next up, we have a data report from Dr. Brink.
Good evening, School Board and Dr. Thomas. Mr. Finley, you have my PowerPoint that I shared. I should have known. There it is. Awesome. I would like to give you, now that we are kind of to a midpoint as we begin second semester on February 1st, I'd like to give you a data update of where we are. We concluded before Christmas break. We were able to get a good bit of our post-testing done. This year the state required us to give a pre-test during our LEAP week and then a post-test prior to December the 31st. Oftentimes we will wait closer to the end of the first semester, which is the end of January, but we were able to get the majority of our post-testing. We do have some testing to do as we come back for some of our students who were out to get some instructional data, but we were able to get a really good gauge as to how we are progressing here at mid-year. So I'm excited to share some of our data with you and happy to answer any questions that you may have. This is a little bit hard to see. Maybe the colors will help you just a little bit. Our 5K students, their pre and post test is in a system called FastBridge. FastBridge it's a screening tool. If you think of it like a thermometer, it sort of takes their temperature as to how they're progressing in both reading and math. It gives subtests as they progress, and we progress monitor them 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. 5K, and this is kind of indicative in some of the early research that's coming out with the COVID slide and learning to read and math skills with some of our earliest learners, is they're struggling the hardest. And so we struggled a little bit, and this is a fall. So when we took at the beginning of the school year to a winter, and you can see a little here that we have about 7% more in our at-risk category in math and about 17% more in our at-risk category in reading. So in 5K, you know, moving from fall to winter, we are really going to need to target our 5K students and making sure that we provide them with the interventions that they need. We all have, with our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems of support, each school has reading and math. We call them academic interventionists, and they are working very hard to make sure that they are identifying our students who need to have these areas of target to get back on track. What you're seeing here is, this is MAP testing. We have MAP tested in this school district for quite some time. Again, it's a progress monitoring tool. It's not a summative assessment, much like our state assessments are at the end of every school year that the State Department uses to report out. These are progress monitoring tools. It sort of follows the child to see how they are progressing. What you're looking at here is that when we MAP test our students, is they can score below target, on target, or exceeding expectations. In the yellow is our winter scores, and in the green is our in the yellow is our fall scores, and the green is our winter growth. So what is wonderful to see here is that our green is much higher than all of our yellow here, including, for example, first grade. You see no yellow. We had 0% of students on target or above when we tested them in the fall during our leap week. At present time, we now have 23.3% that are targeted above. So while we are growing and we are doing good things, we still have a good bit of work ahead of us to continue to mitigate some of those losses that we have seen. So we are moving in the right direction, but we've still got some work to do. And you can see that as we progress, and you'll see this is ELA, that's the reading component in first grade, ELA, and then math, and this is our elementary school, so this is 1 through 5. This is a very interesting statistic, and we all know that there is a lot going on with data right now. We've had a lot happen in a year. But it's always good to compare numbers because that helps us plan instructionally. It's always good to know where we have been and where we're going. So this is where were we in winter 2019 before we all went out of school in March? And where are we now? And so in winter 2019, as compared to winter 2020, you can see the percentage increases in each of those areas. For example, 5th grade math in 2019 compared to 2020, we have increased 27.94 percentage points. So we are, again, this shows you that we are making strides. We still have some work to do. We know that our students have had some learning loss. We know that that's happening in the state. We know that's happening in the nation. But it is also very assuring to know that we are moving in the right direction for our students. I hope it's reassuring for you. I hope it's reassuring for our students, our families, and our teachers who are working very hard. So that's good news. This is our middle and our high school. This year, for the first time, we map tested our 9th graders. What the state wanted to see is how they were progressing out of 8th grade. Since when they left school as 8th graders in March, they wanted to see where they picked back up in 9th grade. Generally, we don't have data as in 9th grade for map testing. So you can see again, we have made gains in all areas of map testing in ELA and in math. We kind of level off when we get to 9th grade, but they started a little higher and in the fall. So again, that's some promising data. We are moving in the right direction, but we have some work to do. Middle school, again, we didn't have 9th grade a year ago, but this shows you again, we have made strides from winter 2019 to winter 2020 here. All pieces of data. We take lots of different diagnostic tests that teachers even give in their own classroom. These are just tools in our toolbox. This helps us plan for instruction. This shows what we're doing, whether it's working. This helps us determine what types of support our students need. Dr. Faulkner was talking about the wonderful things she's doing at the high school to help with academic recovery. This kind of gives you a micro level. The South Carolina Education Oversight Committee just published a report that gave a snapshot of the research that they had done with the COVID. You've heard the term, the COVID slide, in that it's affecting predominantly math a little bit more than reading. But in this study shows you what they are expecting at the end of it. And this is a study, this part that I've given you the excerpt here is from NWEA, which is the company that does our map testing, which is why I put it here on this slide, because I thought it was very pertinent to the data that I was showing you. But ultimately, you're going to see the projection of those that are going to be proficient in reading and math are going to be lower this year, given the circumstances that we've gone through. And so you can see there that, and this kind of goes with the data that I've shown you, 10 to 16% fewer students are projected to meet proficiency in those lower grades in math. 4 to 6 fewer students are expected to meet proficiency in reading, and that's 2nd through 5th grade, and it progressively gets better the older they get, okay? So I gave you sort of the micro level in our own school district. This gives you a little bit more of the macro level on the state side of what everybody's sort of dealing with. And we all know that we're sort of all dealing with that at the national level. So this kind of gives you kind of a data picture of how we look at the data, how we're working with our principals and our school leadership to look at the data, and how we're planning for that instructionally. We have this new tool, and I would have butchered it a little bit more than I would have liked to. So I would like to show you a 2-minute video clip. This is called Rally. It's a data management tool that is going to help us project our student data and student performance on their tests that they take. So it will input map data, for example, project out what they may make on end of school tests. And so this is going to be a really great tool for our school leadership and our teachers to help make individual goals for our students and help us to mitigate some of that learning loss.
Rally provides predictions of your students' academic performance in the upcoming school year. The first prediction provided in Rally is for the Spring 2020 Summative Assessment. This represents our best estimate of how your student would have performed had they actually taken the test during a typical school year. Your student's predicted performance is based on their 2019 state assessment, as well as any interim assessments during the 2019 year for which data are available. Since the impact of the COVID-19 disruption is not yet known at this time, consider this initial prediction a best guess of the trajectory the student would have been on if 2020 had been a typical school year. Rally also predicts your students' performance on interim assessments during the 2020 school year. These predictions are based on the same set of assessments. Again, these predictions are initially made without knowledge of how COVID-19 may have impacted student learning. The predictive models are based solely on the academic history of each student and do not take into account whether students are, for example, economically disadvantaged, have disabilities, or are English learners. They also do not control for race, ethnicity, or gender. Predictions should be used as one piece of context when planning instruction and setting goals. Actual student performance will differ from these predictions. Some students may be more likely to surpass these predictions, while others may be less likely, depending on individual student circumstances and systemic factors. As 2020-2021 progresses and additional assessment data become available, Rally's predictions will update to take into account interim assessment results in the chosen subject. At the beginning of the year, you may think of Rally's predictions as an aspirational data point, where students would have been after a typical summer learning loss. As Rally updates with new assessment data, you may think of the updated predictions as a more accurate depiction of your students' learning trajectory, or as a goal for your students to try to outperform as the year goes on.
Thank you, Mr. Finley. So I think what I'd like to conclude with is to understand that you're going to start hearing things like best guess estimate and empirically derived estimates as we move forward, which are fine, because what we're doing is at least we are setting goals for ourselves. We are using what numbers we have. We are making really sound best guess estimates to help drive our student performance in the right direction. Finally, Dr. Faulkner touched on this at the high school level, but as far as academic support, we are engaged in Engage South Carolina, and that's K through 12, and that's something that the State Department is offering our students. We have approximately 600 students right now who are enrolled. These are state level coaches who are reaching out to our students we are trying to remind them to take those phone calls, because you all know sometimes you get that potential spam that comes up on your phone, and so we're trying to remind them it's okay, because those calls come from Columbia. But that's really good. We get Dr. Thomas gets a weekly report of the things that they are learning from their students, and they will help with anything from academics to technical support to social emotional. Sometimes it's just they need somebody to talk to. It's not necessarily academics. So that's another level of support that we've been able to offer, and that's been really great as well. Our 21st Century Learning Centers are at all of our elementary and middle schools, and those serve students after school for 3 hours. Those continue even when we are e-learning. They continue to check in with them, and again, sometimes it's just a phone call to check to see how their day went. But that is a great tool for our elementary and middle schools. And then the academic recovery tutors right now, and that's K-12, and right now we have budgeted for 81 teachers who can be available to our students to provide that tutoring for them as well. So that concludes my data update. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now if I can, or get you that information if you have anything specific.
Got one just on
Sure.
the rally. Is the data and those charts available to the students and parents at that level, or is this a broader?
Right now it is available. It's kind of one of those things where it's going out at different levels. Right now it's available to principals and assistant principals to learn to use it. But yes, it will be available it's almost like it's a great goal setting tool. You can show it to students when they were showing it to you there. It's something to aspire to. And here's what based on your history of assessments, here's what you can do. And you can do even better. So it's kind of one of those, it's a great goal setting. That's one of its selling points, is it's a great goal setting tool.
Okay. But not available to parents and students?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Learning to use. We're learning to use it, and we'll learn to use it quickly. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Thank you.
Dr. Brink, thank you so much for that data report. I would also like to take this opportunity to really thank our administrators and our teachers for all of their hard work, that even though we are in challenging times, that they're still able to have growth available, that our students are still making growth. So I just want to say thank you so much for our teachers and all of our staff and all of our administrators for all of their hard work and all that they do for our students each and every day. And Chair Little, at this time, I would like to ask Dr. Pendler to share information regarding revising the 2021-2022 district academic calendar.
Good evening. This calendar we just approved, and so we have received a memo as of December 22nd, shortly after we approved our last school calendar for next school year. Part of that statement was that due to us being in an e-learning pilot, that pilot was a 3-year pilot, and the proviso, they're not going to renew that pilot. So what they're looking at now is changing legislation to roll in the e-learning option, but that has not happened yet. So our submission of the state, our school calendar, has to still include all the legislative requirements that are currently on the books. So we're pending and waiting new legislation to roll in the e-learning option for us next year. So a couple of the changes that we have proposed in the next year's calendar, we in the approved calendar, we use September 24th and September 27th as practice days for e-learning. We do feel that the legislation will go through. The recommendations that we're hearing is that they're going to approve 5 e-learning days to be able to be utilized for schools. And so we're still hoping to utilize one of those days as practice to make sure everybody has the capability and the functionality at their homes to be able to utilize e-learning. And so instead of using 2 of our 5 allotted days, we'd like to only back that down to 1 practice day versus the 2 practice days. Clinton is also, Lawrence 56 is going to propose the same calendar at their board meeting this month. So they are also agreed to go down to 1. Our next amendment to the approved calendar is that we do have to put in 3 makeup days scheduled, so we did tag those on to the very end of the school year, hoping that if e-learning does pass the legislature, we can just then back those off and not utilize those days. And so that does not mess up the calendar that we had already proposed, with the proposed date still being of May the 27th as being the last day for students. If we utilize any of these makeup days, that would not change graduation date. It would not do any of that changes. Those would be set in stone, and we would utilize the May 27th as graduation versus changing those dates on graduation. A couple of other things that we are anticipating in the legislation along with the 5 days is that they will also then, after those 5 days, then probably give the school board the ability to waive days after that. The current legislation makes you put 3 makeup days in the calendar, gives you the right to waive 3 more, and then you can request 3 more from the state. So we still anticipate that there will be a waiver that you would have the right to waive a few more days beyond the 5 once that legislation comes through. We haven't seen that on the table yet, but that sounds like that's going to be the recommendation from the e-learning pilot as proposed. Any questions that you may have about the proposed calendar?
Dr. Penland, I have one question. We had talked previously when we approved the calendar of kind of really the entire community wanting that e-learning practice day to be again the week of Thanksgiving.
Right.
And I know you mentioned at the time that you would have to get approval. How did that not get approved, or have you not heard?
Well, with it not being in legislative rule anymore, there's not a way to get that approved. You know, so until legislation is passed, there would not be a way for us to be able to even get those 2 days approved yet until that goes through the State Department. So this would be something that we would have to kind of revisit after that legislation passes to see if we would want to utilize 2 of our 5 days that we could use as makeup days, weather days, that kind of stuff as part of that calendar. The way that it is reading is that it is, you know, you're practicing for that, or it is an actual event. So that's kind of what I don't have the full legislation yet, but I have talked and spoke with the lady that was over our pilot, and she had some recommendations she's taken to the legislature, but we have not seen the actual bill yet.
Okay, so right now, the 24th, you're saying because of the legislation can't be moved?
Right, because in the e-learning pilot, it was supposed to be within the first 45 days.
Right.
And due to all the e-learning and they gave a lot more flexibility this current year to be able to bump those around due to COVID, that allowed us to go outside that 45-day window of practice.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We will need board action on this one.
Any other questions for anyone? Okay, since this requires board action, do we have a motion to approve the calendar put in front of us by Dr. Penland?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hughes. We have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All
I say,
right.
Dr. Penland, thank you for being
Thank you.
flexible with this and bringing it several times.
Yeah, constantly. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, since there's no discussion, we will vote on approving the calendar as presented by Dr. Penland. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you, that's passed. I do want to back up for 1 second. I apologize, I was using my iPad for my agenda earlier, and after the election of the board secretary, I missed public participation. Ms. Lisa, did anyone sign up for public participation?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Little. Mr. Calvin Whitmire had
Okay.
submitted, and he wanted to speak about the Lawrence District 55 hype team.
Okay, if everyone is okay with moving back to that step, we can, is he not here?
I'm sorry, I've just been told he's not here.
Oh, okay, all right, so, and anyone else sign up?
No, ma'am, we didn't have anybody else.
Okay, all right, well, we will skip that part then, we'll move on. And then we will follow back up where Mr. Varner had added an item on the agenda after the superintendent's reports were completed.
So, I would just like to commend you for taking, having such a well thought out report, and it includes forward-looking and really thinking about, some of the stuff we've seen with the data, and really need to get back face to face. And I just want to applaud you. I don't know how we put it together, but I would say that I'd want to put forth a motion to stand behind you and show unity in saying, yes, Dr. Thomas, this is what you think, and we as a collective group also think is the right thing to do for our students and for our community and for the future of our county as a whole. And so I don't know how we want to put that into a motion, but I want it publicly noted that we're standing behind you on the move to go back to face on February 1st.
Hallelujah.
So I would say I'd like to put forth a motion as a resolution of the board supporting Dr. Thomas's decision to move back to face on February 1st of 2021.
Okay, we've heard a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
I feel like Dr. Thomas would do what's safe for all students anyway, and I'm quite sure she knows the board is behind her since she's the leader that's been elected to serve in that capacity. But I think she would do that. I don't think she would lead any of us and our children, again, down the wrong path. So I feel like she would make that right decision anyway. And she also said in her, statement earlier, she wants what's safe for everybody, and she expressed the protocols to be followed as well.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Is there any other discussion? All right, well, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Varner and a second by Mr. Hughes to just unanimously stand behind Dr. Thomas and her decision to be face-to-face learning on February 1st. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That motion passed. Okay, we will move now into board operations, and Mr. Murray is up with some administrative rules.
Madam Chair, Dr. Thomas, members of the Board of Trustees, in November 2020, several new policies were approved by the Board of Trustees. Based on that approval, tonight we are sharing the administrative rules that accompany those approved policies. First, I would reference policies GBAA, a staff policy, and JIAA, a student policy, on sexual harassment and retaliation. The corresponding administrative rules, GBAAR and JIAAR, provide clarification on definitions, identify the district's Title IX coordinator, establish reporting guidelines and a grievance process to be utilized even when a formal complaint may not be filed, the process for filing a formal complaint, the investigatory guidelines associated with a complaint, the process for the determination of responsibility, the appeals process, informal complaint procedures regarding mediation, the consequences of retaliation against anyone filing a complaint, and/or consequences for filing a false report. Finally, these administrative rules identify training and record-keeping requirements. In addition, each administrative rule on sexual harassment has a form for filing a complaint of sexual harassment and retaliation, Forms GBAA E1 and JIAA E1 respectively. The packet you received should also include a graphic organizer of the Title IX complaint process. These are administrative rules, so they do not require any board action, but I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have about those administrative rules.
I'd ask just one question, if you will. In my experience with ISO documents, it's hard to put someone's specific name.
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to seeing more of a position put in
Right.
here, so that if you do have natural turnover, you don't have to go back and change this document. I realize this one might be easier to change than the policy, but that would be my one comment.
It is just simply, we would just, if that role does change to somebody else, at that next board meeting, we would just bring that back as an administrative rule again and share that information with you. But yes, I understand that. If it's a policy, it's a much different issue then. Any other questions on the sexual harassment? And, okay. Also before you is Administrative Rule GCOAR, which reflects the changes in the expanded ADEPT system for the evaluation of instructional staff. This includes evaluation procedures for induction contract teachers, annual contract teachers, and continuing contract teachers. You will note that there is a section on the first page of this administrative rule that gives us the option of collecting additional growth measures outside of the standard student learning objective or SLO process. At this time, no additional growth measures have been identified for inclusion. If any are added in the future, we will be sure to bring those to the board's attention. Any questions on Administrative Rule GCOAR? Okay. Next up, Administrative Rule JLCDDR provides the necessary guidelines for students who may request the use of a service animal on district property. It includes the elements of an implementation plan and discusses procedures in the event the student intends to use district transportation with the service animal. The next two administrative rules before you tonight are GCC-R, COVID-19 related leave for professional staff, and GDC-R, COVID-19 related leave for support staff. In both of these administrative rules, the only change is in the dates for which these leave provisions apply. Originally, these temporary administrative rules were set to expire on December 31st, 2020. But because of the extended impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the availability of additional CARES Act funding, these temporary administrative rules are being extended through June 30th, 2021. So that is the last of the administrative rules I have for you tonight. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or find an answer for you at some appropriate time. If not, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Next, we have Mr. Jim Lawless.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Before I deliver the financial report, I would like to take a moment just to express my appreciation for each of you and the service that you have given to our school district. And to those of you that are new to the position, I thank you for your commitment to our students and our community. I look forward to working with you in the years to come, and having served in that role myself, I understand the importance of the work that you do. And while you're not involved in the day-to-day tasks of administering a school, the decisions that you make set the tone and pave the way for success or failure for the students of Lawrence County and its next generation of community members and its leaders. So again, I just want to thank you personally. So you'll find at your places a copy of the financial reports for November and December of 2020. Our balance with the Treasurer's Office as of November 30th was $5,370,300. Our general fund revenues for that first 5 months was $14,761,964, with expenditures for that same period of $15,928,376. So at that point, we were operating in a deficit condition of $1,166,412, and the tax collections for November were $2,172,125. Now, November is kind of a low point for school district finance because of the property tax revenues and their uneven inflows to our district. So as of December 31st, our balance with the Treasurer's Office was $7,837,355, with revenues for that 6-month period of $21,495,922, and expenditures for that period of $20,654,938. So at that point, we had rebounded to an increase of $840,984, and our tax collections for December, you can tell, are obviously very different from November. That was $4,103,502. So halfway through the current fiscal year, we're in a slightly better position than we were at this point last year. You'll recall back in, well, Does anyone have any questions about that portion of the financial report? Okay. You'll recall that back in the fall, the district issued tax anticipation notes to have as a safety net in hopes of never having to actually use the proceeds. And I am happy to announce that tonight that we did not ever have to dip into that, the funds from those notes, and that our first repayment was occurring this month. So those funds were set aside and just waiting to be repaid, and thankfully the worst case scenario did not happen and we did not have to use those funds. As the year progresses, we'll hopefully find ourselves in a position at the end of this year and in going into the fall that we could at very least reduce the amount that we borrowed compared to this year, and if not, get back to the point where we don't have to feel like we need to issue them at all. The other thing that I have is that you should have found at your place is a copy of the independent auditor's report and audit communications from McKinley Cooper and Company for the year ended June 30th, 2020. It's important to note that our auditors issued an unmodified opinion on the presentation of the financial statements, and that is the highest level of assurance that an auditee can receive. Our auditors noted no significant audit findings, no known misstatements, either corrected or uncorrected, no significant audit adjustments, and no disagreements between the auditors and district personnel regarding the financial presentation or the audit report. Our general fund balance on June 30th, 2020 was $6,271,603, which is a decrease from the prior year of $933,518. Our general fund still represents 12.6% of our general fund expenditures for a fiscal year, for the year ended June 30th, 2020. This is the second year that we have run in a general fund deficit, and based on our fund balance at June 30th, we're still considered adequate in terms of our fund balance based on the fact that we didn't have to dip into the TAN proceeds. But still, that general fund could certainly use a good bolstering. For this reason and others, we are actively looking at cost-saving measures in order to stabilize that financial condition of the district while still maintaining the educational opportunities that we provide our students. A copy of that auditor's report will be posted on the district's website for public information after this meeting. Does anyone have any questions for me? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lawless. Right now, the next on the agenda is to go into executive session. So do we have a motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion.
All right, Mr. Hughes, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll enter into executive session and reconvene shortly.
You didn't carry the motion.
Oh, I apologize, Ms. Ware. Show of hands for who's ready to move to executive session. Thank you. Motion passes.
I'm sorry, who made the second?
I did.
Okay. I can't, I don't.
Okay, we're back in executive session. And we have no action to take from our executive session, but I do just want to say that, Dr. Thomas, all of us appreciate the work that you're doing, the work that you have done, and the work that we know you'll continue to do. We appreciate you, and we're excited to be here as your new board. And with that being said, we can adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make,
I didn't know if Miss Dr. Thomas had
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say thank you.
okay.
Thank you. All
I'll
right.
second that motion to adjourn then. since
Okay.
I was
Thank
already
you.
speaking.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.